Hello, everyone. This is Adam Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology, and I'm recording a video blog of the day for December 16th, 2017. Today, we're going to be talking about the upcoming new moon. We're going to be talking about the fact that this new moon is taking place at the Galactic Center, which is an interesting point that a lot of astrologers like to think and talk about in our delineations. And we're going to be talking about the fact that as this is happening, we have an old Saturn and an old Venus, Saturn about to change signs, all taking place right around the winter solstice. This is something that I covered in yesterday's video blog. Today I'm kind of going over it with, yesterday was a little bit more technical. Today I'm going to cover it from the standpoint of being a little bit more specific about what you can expect to see from this transit. So I'm also experimenting today with I've been trying to keep my notes on the screen so that I can see them and keep looking at the camera, which I struggle with. So, because I have a hard time doing both. I'm not used to video blogging, but I got some feedback from viewers saying, look at the camera. So I was like, okay, so I need to maybe switch the view, and let me just adjust my mic a little bit too. Anyway, I appreciate your patience as I figure out video blogging. It's all pretty new to me. So I do have to look at my notes a little bit, but all right. So first things first, we have new moon coming up this week. Let's see. And this new moon is taking place at 26 Sagittarius, early Monday morning, basically. So tomorrow night, late / early Monday morning. Now this is happening basically right within a couple of days of the winter solstice. So you have a new moon, which is a symbol of new beginnings. You have the winter solstice, which is a pivotal time of year, also related to the culmination of darkness and the transformation and move toward light in the solar year. So it's a really big year. It's a really big moment in terms of the solar year, and it's a big moment in terms of the lunar month, both happening at once. Add to that Saturn is culminating in the late degrees of Sagittarius, last degree of Sagittarius, and it's going to switch over into Capricorn basically right on the 19th. And then you have, and that transit's pretty rare because Saturn stays in a sign for, can be up to, beyond 2.5 years. So the fact that it's switching signs into Capricorn is really significant. We've talked about that at length before. You have an old Saturn. The sun is about to conjoin Saturn, which means that Saturn within its synodic cycle with the sun is also about to start over. And that's also really significant. Then you have an old Venus. Venus is about to conjoin with the sun, which is going to happen in Capricorn a little ways down the line yet into January. But the fact that you have an old Venus and an old Saturn all within, approximately 8 degrees or so at the new moon, and add to that this new moon is taking place in those late degrees of Sagittarius, around 26 Sagittarius, which is, astronomers tell us that's the zodiacal longitude that is related to the Galactic Center, the center of our Milky Way. So for a lot of astrologers, that's any one of those topics could take up a column, right? So we have all of them happening at once, which is pretty unique. If you have any questions as we're going along, feel free to enter them into the streaming box. I'm going to try to cover sort of how we can think about each one of the facets of all that's going on. So let's repeat them quickly. You've got a new moon, you've got the winter solstice, you've got Saturn changing signs, you've got all of this taking place basically at the galactic center point, and you have an old Saturn and an old Venus and a Saturn that's about to change signs. That's all happening together, clustering around the next week. So first of all, let's just start with the most obvious level, right? So when people say, well, what can I expect? Just expect a really pivotal moment. Like in astro speak, this is a pivotal moment. What is a pivotal moment? How can you define it? In the broadest terms, it's transformation of circumstances that goes from, facing forward to facing backward, like a 180, like something that's turning around a pivot. It's just, think about it that way. So very generally a transformation of circumstances that is pivotal, dynamic, and God forbid the word transformational, right? If I hear the word, there should be a quarter jar for every time somebody uses the word transformation in astrology. But But at any rate, you get the point. So just think about it in general from that sense and you'll be okay. But let's be a little bit more specific. What does it mean that this new moon is featuring an old Saturn and an old Venus? Well, remember again, old Saturn, old Venus means that the Venus is about to conjoin the sun and start a new synodic cycle with the sun, and the sun is about to conjoin Saturn and start a new synodic cycle with Saturn. All of that is also, we're on the brink of that. Well, when you have an old Saturn and an old Venus in a fiery Jupiter-ruled sign like Sagittarius, one thing that comes to mind, maybe the most general thing I could think of when I was taking my notes this morning, is Jupiter as the sign ruler of Sagittarius refers to our beliefs. It's a planet that relates to your life philosophy, your convictions, your ideals, what you're passionate about. And we're talking about an old Saturn in the sign of beliefs, in a sign whose ruling planet is related to beliefs. And you have Venus also in that old stage within the sign related to Jupiter and beliefs. So it's a time where your convictions, your beliefs, and the practices that are related to those beliefs could be going through a kind of a season where you're reaping what's been sown, positively or negatively. So all of the time we operate based on our beliefs. They're really, they're with us all the time. We interact with the world based on what we believe about the world. So right now, if you've had certain beliefs about the world, let's say you walk around the world feeling like, basically everybody is really, really good. Everybody's really, really good. And let's say you're just a stubborn optimist, right? And it's almost like a dogma. You're so optimistic that it's just dogmatic. This might be a time where you have an unavoidable confrontation in your life with somebody who's just so negative that it makes you question your beliefs, and maybe your beliefs have to grow up a little bit and mature a little bit. Maybe there's a little bit more room for darkness now because you've gotten into a situation with a boss or a friend or a spouse or a coworker or something like that, and they're just so negative that it challenges to the bones your belief that everything is ultimately positive and good and roses. That's a very, very, very simple example, right? But wherever your beliefs take you in life, when you're seeing a new moon and this pivotal turning point and an old Saturn and an old Venus, and they're all sort of this theme of expiration dates in a sign that's related to your beliefs, you may be seeing some kind of important karmic transformation relative to your beliefs about the world, yourself, other people, etc. The other thing that could happen is that sometimes our beliefs are so they can pay off in a more positive sense. Like sometimes it's time for a belief system or structure to die, and other times it's time to see the fruits of those belief structures. There's a great quote from Pattabhi Jois, who's a famous yogi, was the founder basically of sort of the Ashtanga practice, if you know that form of asana practice in the West. And Pattabhi Jois said, "Do your practice and all is coming." Do your practice and all is coming. So another thing that's possible with the old Saturn at the very end of the sign, the expiring or culminating of something, but also the new moon and the winter solstice, you could put all that together to say that something you've been practicing over a long time, the values and beliefs that you've held and been committed to, you may be seeing fruits from those things resulting right now. You may be starting to see the fruits of your practices sort of like coming up and saying, hey, nice job. You've been practicing, and certain things in your life that you no longer need are starting to fall off. And it's amazing how, like, for example, I remember early in my, when I first started practicing meditation pretty regularly, I had some things that I thought, I'm always mentally distracted by X, Y, and Z, and I can't ever seem to get off my, it's really hard for me to stop doing my cell phone, Well, as this is happening, as this is all culminating, very, very naturally, a couple of days ago, I was like, I'm so done with Facebook on my cell phone, right? I just I'm on it, all the time for work. I'm here hanging out with people. I write and all this stuff, but I'm just I don't want to be it's you're like the lotto thing. You're just constantly ticking and seeing what's going to show up. And did anyone like my post and all that? And I was very naturally, it just fell off, right? And I was looking at the astrology and I was like, oh, that's really interesting. You know, it makes sense that a certain fruits from my meditation practice, the things that I set intentions about a long time ago, I don't want to be so hooked to Facebook and my cell phone. And those things are starting to fall off. Similarly, just maybe like a week ago, I also dropped our cable TV subscription because I was like, and my wife doesn't care. She's double Taurus. She's like very happy to be like out in the woods. So she was like, you know, I've got my son in the third house, you know, so I'm like media junkie, whatever. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to do TV anymore. Well, you know, I've been meditating every day for a long time now, and those are things that I remember when I started my practice this is a long time ago, and I'm never going to be able to get over those things. And now they're starting to fall off. And I'm reminded of that quote from Patabi Joyce, do your practice and all is coming. You could apply that more generally to, this is what I believe, this is what I've practiced, this is what this is my life as an expression of my beliefs, and it's bearing fruit. So you could think about that as what's happening right now with the old Saturn. Now, our beliefs and our practices, Saturn, also generate they generate lifestyle, right? So beliefs and practice translate into lifestyle. So one of the interesting things that you can think about this in terms of the zodiac, is the fact that Libra, which is one of Venus's signs, is the place where Saturn is exalted. Now, most of the time, you know, I hear people talk about Venus and Saturn together, and they're like, oh my God, it's such a difficult aspect because it's an aspect that's basically, you know, like, oh, it's my love life, it's so hard, or, you know, it's usually like related to like pain in romance or something, like disappointment with dating. But Venus and Saturn also have a kind of ancient relationship that you can see very subtly worked out in that exchange of dignities in some ways. Venus is also like the acolyte of the temple. So where you see flowers placed on altars in temples, if you go into a yoga studio and there's beautiful incense burning, there's sage in the like a Native American ritual, or you're in a sweat lodge and there's certain kind of maybe things that you're putting on your body ceremonially, like smell a certain way, other things like that, like all elements of ritual that, you know, are aesthetic, that involve flower, scent, the five senses. That's all Venus. So Venus is like attendant to religious life as the expression of ceremony and the decor of ritual. I mean, one of the ways we acknowledge the divine is by giving it gifts, by giving the universe, by arranging our lives, and not just living by our practices and beliefs, but like adorning our practices and beliefs. So this is also a time where the things that you believe in life and the way that those beliefs relate to your lifestyle, you might be seeing both structural, you know, philosophical changes taking place right now, or the fruits of philosophy and practice paying off. And related to that might be lifestyle issues, aesthetic issues, sensual issues, your body, the five senses, how those things relate. Now, I'm kind of going today. You could go in different directions with all of this, but the thing I'm really focusing on right now is the idea of beliefs, how old beliefs might be dying, or how practices might be paying off, and how that may be related to lifestyle or aesthetics or appearance of things. Okay, so think about that, play with that, see what you come up with. Now, we have to talk about the fact that this new moon is also taking place at the Galactic Center. What's with the Galactic Center, right? First of all, I want to like make an admission. This is my like moment of truth. I don't care about the Galactic Center. I'll just say it. I don't care. Galactic Center, who cares? Not me. So, okay, that's my like super grumpy like admission. I'm not a big Galactic Center person. Here's why. I'll try to explain it. I'll try to explain it as simply as I can without coming off like a real jerk. I don't care because I feel like every day there is a new astrological symbol that gives an excuse for people to not know how to use the basics intelligently, right? Like I see so many people who don't know, like students and stuff like that, who don't know how to deal with Mercury, but they're talking about Chiron and the Galactic Center. Like the Capricorn moon in me wants to tie them all to a chair and be like, we are going to sit here until you know all the basics of dignity and, like all the basic stuff. And then we can go play with Chiron and galactic centers and, crazy star nebulas with aquatic fish people and other planets and like whatever. So that's me at my absolute grumpiest, right? But I want to acknowledge today that all symbols in astrology are potentially meaningful. It's not that the Galactic Center doesn't mean anything. It's just that I sometimes feel like I'm getting meaninged to death, right? I just feel like in order for symbols in the world or in astrology to mean anything, there has to be the opportunity for them to mean nothing. So for example, let's talk about the perennial cigar, right? A cigar can be a phallic object, right? A cigar is also, however, sometimes just a cigar. And we need cigars to just be cigars so that they can stand a chance to sometimes really be a phallic object. That tension between the mundane world and symbol is really important to hold. So I don't like how people are stacking. It's like, in the United States, I feel like especially, or just Western culture, we're just like, let's make the largest Big Mac of symbolism that we can and then just like scarf it. So I'm like, I don't want any more, I don't want to stack so many ingredients on my astrological burger, which is, I don't eat meat, so whatever. It's an astrological veggie burger. So all right, so that's my truth. But I don't mean to say that there's nothing to the Galactic Center or any asteroid or any, a septile or a biquintile or whatever the technique might be. And I think, some people can actually specialize in these things, develop intimate relationships with the symbols and become like, the way I see it, it's sort of like we're all wizards as astrologers. And some of us are like carrying the staff of the Galactic Center. And I carry the staff of the basics because whatever, that's what does it for me. To me, it's like if you develop whatever symbol you love or are called to with consistency and depth, then great. Good on you. I just don't like so many things being used superficially and shallowly versus actually developing rapport and depth with a symbol. So that's my beef. But let's talk about the Galactic Center now that I've gotten off my soapbox. Let's ask, why are people actually interested in this thing called a Galactic Center, right? One of the main reasons is that what does the Galactic Center evoke? Bigness. It's galactic, right? You say the word galactic and everyone feels for a moment like they're wearing a Star Trek uniform. And that's exciting because most of us are dealing with things like, at least me, I'm dealing with like, did my daughter poop today? Like if she didn't, I need to make sure that she drinks water. How am I going to do that without pinning her to the floor? Like I'm dealing with like mundane stuff, like, like, like every day we're just dealing with like the most mundane stuff in the world. And I think the Galactic Center evokes that feeling of transcendence, that feeling of bigness, that feeling that we are a part of a network of, millions or billions of stars, and things like 27,000 light years. Like when phrases like this get uttered and somehow they're related to like a new moon, I think that regardless of what forces may exist in the Galactic Center degree of the zodiac, psychologically, the symbol, archetypally, psychically, energetically, whatever you want to call it, the symbol of the Galactic Center has import as something that connects us to something bigger. We see the big picture. So bigness, scope of vision, those are really important things for this new moon. You could just think very generally. We've already talked about the death of beliefs or belief systems that are starting to pay off in practice. Talk about the connection to lifestyle. And then let's add to that, is your vision big enough? Or do you have a big enough understanding of your own life in time and space? Like, are you able to see the forest from the trees in terms of your own life and how the practices, beliefs, and values of your life are playing out? What kind of reality have they created? What kind of karmic ends are your current decisions moving toward? Last night I went with my wife to see A Christmas Carol, And in it, I was reminded of how simple the transition from Sagittarius to Capricorn can be. In some ways, the transition occurs with Ebenezer Scrooge meeting the ghost of things yet to come, the final, most scary ghost in the Christmas Carol story. He says, tell me, Spirit, are the things that I'm seeing, which are all of his death and Tiny Tim's death. And he's saying, are these things things that will come to pass, or things that have yet to come to pass and could be changed if basically the behaviors that will lead to them are changed? And the ghost doesn't say anything. There's no answer. And that kind of, we sit on the cusp of something like that right now. Every year at winter solstice, that's sort of the cusp that we sit on. That's why we make New Year's resolutions, because we're at the heart of darkness at this time of year. And in the heart of darkness, we're able to see very deeply into the unconscious, and in some ways project it forward into the future. If we're paying attention, if we're really reflecting inwardly, this darkened time of year is more than just eating cookies and cuddling up under the blankets and watching Elf, which is what we do. So it's also about understanding what's in the unconscious and how it's projecting forward into the future, and then making resolution to change. Ebenezer Scrooge wakes up a new person. So at any rate, you can think about that, and that's an important thing to think about, that the bigness of vision right now allows us to see where we're heading. The Galactic Center, I think, as a symbol for this new moon, can help us to see the end game of how we're acting in the world and where it's all going. And that's an impetus for change. That's also the new moon, the new beginning, the old Saturn that's dying. So the real sense of deep, lasting resolution. Or are we also possibly seeing the fruits of our labors, right? And seeing if we continue, if we keep tilling, and doing working the field of our spiritual practices and doing the work, we're starting to see the forest from the trees right now. We're starting to say, my God, I'm making a little bit of progress. I'm maybe becoming a little bit more of the person I know I am, my highest self. So I think both of those are part of the bigness of the archetypal Galactic Center. Now, also, I want to talk a little bit about hubris, right? Because there's the other thing, and this is also part of my annoyance with the Galactic Center, is that I think a lot of times people really like the Galactic Center because it's about bigness, and everybody, and sometimes I hear a lot of astrologers saying things like, go for your vision, do it all, seize the day. It's like, it's everybody. There's an emphasis on trying to make your dreams come true. I'm not against dreams or, trying to make your dreams come true, but there is a hubris associated with this kind of create your own reality culture in general. I'm not saying it's all, it's not black or white, right? But this whole, I'm going to manifest this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to intend this, etc. To whatever extent some of our big grandiose visions are unrealistic, are impractical, are egocentric, are selfish, require more practical work ethic or daily commitment than we have in us, we may be starting to have to come to terms with that right now. There's also a pride cometh before a fall kind of dynamic pictured in the planets right now. So think about that. And also remember that if you're getting your wings clipped at all right now, and we all do, it happens to all of us. Sometimes our vision is great and we're finding the support and things are developing and basically the universe is supporting us. Other times, it's not happening. But can we, in those moments when maybe we feel like our wings are getting clipped a little bit, or we're being, sort of cut down to size by, and then that's part of the, the spiritual healing, right? Is a lot of it has to do with our ego being humbled. And if that's happening to us, the most fantastic, amazing thing that we can do is stand up in the face of that humbling experience and say, yes, thank you. Yes. If this is what I need, I trust it. Like the most daring thing, I think the thing that sometimes I think that what God or God's angels likes the most is when we're getting a difficult lesson and something isn't working out as we'd like or as we hope or as we plan, when we can bring a smile to our face and say, thank you, I trust 100% that this is exactly what I need. Even if we have no idea if we can actually handle it or not. Can we be audacious about accepting difficult lessons? Just as audacious as we are about saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to make this happen, I'm going to believe, it's all going to conspire to support my truth and blah, blah, blah. We have no problem being audacious about that, right? But we tend to blame ourselves or feel like real victims or, really, get down and depressed when things don't go our way. And I think this is a transit also that can really take us far in plant new seeds in relationship to being able to say yes to no's. When there's a no that comes in and clips your wing, when your Galactic Center moment feels more like like someone pooped in your swimming pool, and it's not feeling super big and galactic, then, say yes to it, let's scrub and work and, let's be audacious about facing limitations and no's from the universe just as much as we get thrilled about the yeses. So here's some other things very basically. You could see the falling away of interests, passions, and hobbies that no longer serve you. You could see the expiration date of something that you've been learning or studying, as well as the fruits of labor related to something that you've been learning or studying. You could also see the consolidation of a more mature, responsible adult vision. You could start to see the forest from the trees in terms of how a karma has been playing out in your life. So those are some of the, just summaries of what you might get from this. So that's it for today. I hope that this was really interesting for everybody. A little bit of a longer one today because it's a pretty dynamic transit. So I hope that you found this interesting. Could you all see me a little bit better? I made a point to change my camera angle so that I could actually see you guys. Can you see? Is that? I don't know if you've seen my other videos, like you probably couldn't see me very well. So I hope that this new view is a little bit better. I want to just mention to you that if you want to know how this transit is affecting you in the year ahead, every year at this time of year for 40 days, I fundraise. So let me tell you about my morning. Every morning I get up, and this is a serious practice for me, and it's not easy. I love it, but it's not easy. So I get up, I practice meditation, I chant, and I practice yoga. Then I bust out Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. I bust out the I Ching, one of my favorite spiritual texts, and I sit and I read, and I just remember the holy teachings from different of my favorite traditions, Taoism, yoga philosophy, things like that. Then I spend time looking into this computer screen at the daily transits. I just look at them. I spend time with them. Then I write whatever I write. And that entire process usually starts for me at about 5:30 in the morning. And it usually wraps up somewhere by mid-morning after I've written and distributed it everywhere. Having a kid has changed that because sometimes I have to spend time with my daughter. And now I'm making these video blogs once in a while as well. That's what I do in addition to taking clients, seeing private students, teaching classes, things like that. This is my full-time job. And every year at this time of year, because my work goes out to thousands of people, I ask my readers to support me if you're able to. I do almost all of my work by donation, or I offer some form of need-based tuition. I host other speakers throughout the year and try to support the development of the astrological community. And so this is my whole life purpose. For the last 40 days of every year, I fast. I don't eat from sunrise until sundown for 40 days. And during that time, I'm spending a little bit of extra time in prayer and meditation, and asking for help from my readers. I live I'm a modern secular materialist. Don't get me wrong. I consume. I'm far from perfect, but this is my sort of a little bit of a monastic life that I live. So I'm fully dedicated every year to becoming a better astrologer for all of you. And the last 40 days, I ask all of you, whoever's able to pitch into my Kickstarter and throw in what you can to support my career. I only support myself at $50 a day. So that's as much as I take. Beyond that, like we've raised $26,000 so far. The next 11,000 after that, what we've done now is we are paying off a very basic air conditioning unit that we had to put into the yoga studio because our yoga studio's landlord did not tell us that they don't have AC or heat on certain days of the week in the winter or summer. So we had to put one in ourselves. We didn't know that. It wasn't a part of our budget plan when we moved into the new space. We also, there's all sorts of unexpected costs related to relocating a yoga studio. So we've gone into some debt, which is difficult because we're a donation-based business. So we are trying to get out of the red because it's, the way that we work is not geared toward massive amounts of profit. We are geared towards sustainment and building community and continuing to make sure that all of our classes are affordable with scholarships, donation-based ranges, things like that. That's our mission. So we fundraise as a part of drawing support from our community for that mission. So if you're able to, I would love for your help. I'm going to put the link into the chat box. And when you donate, here's what you can get. This is Krishna Blue, by the way. Krishna is my homeboy. So you see my office is all blue for Krishna. Krishna and Jesus, they're my two homies. So, and Radha, who is the goddess counterpart of Krishna. Anyway, when you donate to the Kickstarter at 75, I will make you a personally recorded year ahead tarot reading. When you do it at 100, I will make you a personally recorded year ahead astrology reading. There's lots of other gifts you can choose from on the site. If you do $50 a month for the whole year, I'll make you a personally recorded month ahead transit recording for the whole year. You can pick a couple of readings at the $300 level and give them as gifts. So there's lots to choose from. And at this point, everything that you are contributing is going straight toward the development of our community herbal medicine garden. We're going to hopefully put a sign up in our yoga studio out front because we don't have one yet. And we're paying off some business debt from last year. So again, I thank you guys so much for your support. I'm over 30 minutes. So I'm going to stop now. I will see you guys again soon. I hope you all have a fantastic new moon. And if you have any questions or comments or helpful feedback about my video blogs, let me know. And have a great weekend. Bye, everyone.